The flickering neon sign of the anvil cast long, distorted shadows across the rain-slicked alleyway. Inside, the air thrummed with a primal energy, a mixture of sweat, blood, and desperation. This wasn't just a fight club. It was a pressure cooker, a crucible forged in violence, and the perfect place for someone to disappear or, in Jason Statham's case, reappear as someone else entirely that we find him not yet him, but a ghost of the man he used to be. Bishop is a name from the past, a phantom limb of a special forces operative haunted by ghosts of missions gone wrong. He's weathered, scarred, both inside and out, existing on the fringes, a reluctant enforcer for a two-bit fixer he's trying to fade, to bury the skills that made him a weapon. But the world, it seems, has other plans. His apartment, a cramped, sparsely furnished room above a dingy bar, reflects his current state of mind. Utilitarian, bleak, temporary that he spends his days nursing. Cheap whiskey, the television a constant hum of white noise against the silence of his regret. He takes the occasional job, enough to keep him afloat, but avoids anything that might require him to truly engage. Then, the visitor arrives that a sharp knock cuts through the drunken haze. Standing in the doorway is a woman named Isabella Rossi that she's sharp, impeccably dressed, and radiating an authority that Bishop recognizes instantly. She's not law enforcement, at least not officially. More likely, a specialized operative working outside the conventional channels. Isabella bypasses the usual pleasantries. She knows who he is, or rather, who he was. She lays out the proposition with clinical precision that a network of organized crime is flourishing beneath the city's veneer of respectability, centered around an underground fight club called The Anvil, run by a ruthless kingpin named Viktor Volkov. Volkov is suspected of far more than just illegal fighting. Isabella's organization believes he's involved in arms dealing, human trafficking, and potentially even assassinations. The problem? Getting close to Volkov is nearly impossible. The Anvil is a closed ecosystem, accessible only to those who prove their worth through blood and violence. That's where Bishop comes in. His skill set, his inherent ruthlessness, makes him the ideal candidate to infiltrate the club, rise through the ranks, and expose Volkov from the inside. Bishop initially refuses that he's done with that life, with the moral compromises and the endless bloodshed. He wants peace, even if it's a hollow, whiskey-soaked peace. Isabella anticipates his reluctance. She slides a file across the table. Inside are photographs, crime scene reports, and a single, chilling piece of evidence linking Volkov directly to the murder of Bishop's sister. Years ago, a case that was mysteriously closed with no leads. The piece he craves was stolen from him. The flicker of dormant rage ignites in Bishop's eyes that he looks at Isabella, a grim acceptance etched on his face. "Tell me what you need," he says, his voice a low, dangerous rumble. The game, whether he likes it or not, is back on. He is about to step back into the darkness, where only the most ruthless survived. Bishop's acceptance is not a triumphant return to form, but a grim pact made with a ghost. The file Isabella presented wasn't just evidence. It was a key, unlocking a vault of suppressed rage and grief. He hadn't just lost his sister. He'd lost faith in the system, in justice, in any semblance of order. Volkov's untouchability, the way he had seemingly erased all traces of his involvement, was a festering wound. This mission isn't about upholding the law. It's about personal retribution, a brutal reckoning that Bishop intends to deliver himself. He spends the next few days preparing, shedding the skin of his self-imposed exile. The cheap whiskey is replaced with a rigorous training regimen, pushing his body to its limits, reawakening the muscle memory of a trained killer that he studies the file Isabella provided, memorizing faces, aliases, and operational details. He needs to become someone else, a blank slate with a violent edge, someone who would fit seamlessly into the brutal ecosystem of the Anvil. Isabella provides him with a new identity, Danny Sharp, a drifter with a checkered past and a penchant for violence. She supplies him with a forged criminal record, a backstory of petty crimes and bar fights, enough to pique the interest of the Anvil's recruiters. She also equips him with a discreet comms device, surgically implanted in his ear, allowing her to monitor his progress and provide support when needed. However, Bishop makes it clear that he will operate on his own terms. He distrusts Isabella's organization, sensing a hidden agenda beneath their carefully constructed facade. He agrees to provide them with information, but he reserves the right to act independently. To follow his own instincts, he understands that this mission is a gamble, a descent into a world of darkness where the lines between right and wrong blur. He's willing to risk everything, but he refuses to be a pawn in someone else's game. Before entering the anvil, Bishop makes one last visit to his sister's grave. He stands there in the pouring rain, the wind whipping around him, the city lights a distant. Blurred, he doesn't speak, doesn't pray, he simply stands there, a silent promise etched on his face. He will find justice for her, even if it means sacrificing everything he has left. The infiltration begins. Bishop, now Danny Sharp, arrives at a rundown bar in the city's underbelly, a known recruiting ground for the Anvil. He picks a fight with a couple of burly patrons, showcasing his brutal efficiency and unwavering aggression. The brawl attracts the attention of a hulking figure, a man with a shaved head and a network of scars crisscrossing his face. He introduces himself as Knuckles, one of the Anvil's talent scouts. He sees something in Bishop, a raw potential for violence, a willingness to cross the line that he offers him a chance to prove himself, a shot at joining the ranks of the Anvil. Bishop accepts, his eyes gleaming with a cold, calculated determination. The descent has begun. Knuckles leads Bishop through a maze of back alleys. The city's underbelly is stark contrast to the glittering skyscrapers above. The Anvil isn't a glamorous establishment. It's a subterranean bunker, a concrete tomb hidden beneath a dilapidated warehouse. The air inside is thick with the stench of sweat, stale beer, and fear. The sounds of grunting, bone-crushing impacts, and the roar of the crowd reverberate through the space. Bishop is immediately thrown into the deep end. Knuckles informs him that he needs to earn his place. To prove he's worthy of fighting in the Anvil's main events, he's directed to a makeshift training area, a cramped space filled with heavy bags, rusty weights, and a collection of hardened fighters, each vying for a chance to climb the ranks. The training is brutal, relentless, designed to weed out the weak. Bishop is paired with a towering brute named Hammer, a veteran of the Anvil known for his devastating power. Hammer wastes no time in testing Bishop's mettle, unleashing a barrage of punishing blows. Bishop absorbs the punishment, his face a mask of stoic indifference. Studying his opponent's weaknesses, he's not trying to win. He's trying to assess the level of competition, to understand the rules of this brutal game. After enduring several rounds of relentless assault, Bishop finally sees an opening that he uses his superior technique and agility to evade Hammer's attacks, landing a series of precise strikes that target his pressure points. Hammer collapses, gasping for air, defeated but not broken. Bishop has passed the first test. Knuckles is impressed. He sees the potential in Bishop, the raw talent that can be molded into a formidable weapon. That he assigns him a gruff, no-nonsense trainer named Razor, a former fighter who knows the ins and outs of the Anvil. Razor puts Bishop through a grueling training regimen, focusing on honing his striking power, improving his grappling skills, and teaching him the dirty tricks that are essential for survival in the ring. Bishop learns quickly, adapting to Razor's harsh methods and absorbing his knowledge like a sponge. That he spends hours practicing his technique, pushing his body to its limits, transforming himself from a skilled operative into a ruthless fighter. He also begins to observe the other fighters, studying their styles, their strengths, and their weaknesses. That he needs to understand the dynamics of this brutal ecosystem, to identify potential allies and dangerous enemies. His first official fight is scheduled for the following week. That he's matched against a young, inexperienced fighter named Spider, known for his speed and agility. Bishop knows he needs to make a statement, to prove that he's a force to be reckoned with. He enters the ring with a cold, calculated determination, his eyes fixed on his opponent. The bell rings, and the fight begins. The crowd roars, hungry for violence. Bishop is ready. He is no longer Bishop. He is Danny Sharp, a ruthless fighter with nothing to lose. He will rise through the ranks of the Anvil, no matter the cost. The fight against Spider is short, brutal, and decisive. Bishop doesn't underestimate his opponent's speed, but he recognizes his inexperience. That he uses a combination of aggressive striking and calculated grappling to control the fight. Quickly overwhelming Spider's defenses, he ends the fight with a swift, perfectly placed knockout punch, leaving Spider unconscious on the canvas. The crowd erupts, impressed by Bishop's raw power and technical skill that he has made a statement. He's not just another face in the crowd. He's a force to be reckoned with. Knuckles grins, recognizing the potential for profit. Razor nods in approval, satisfied with his student's progress. Bishop continues to fight, week after week, dispatching his opponents with ruthless efficiency. He becomes a rising star in the Anvil, his reputation growing with each victory. He earns the nickname, the Ghost, a moniker that reflects his silent demeanor and his ability to seemingly appear and disappear at will. As he climbs the ranks, Bishop begins to observe the inner workings of the Anvil. He notices the subtle power dynamics, the unspoken rules, and the various factions that vie for control. That he sees the gambling operations, the drug dealing, and the casual violence that permeate the environment. That he starts to gather information, discreetly recording conversations, photographing documents, and piecing together the puzzle of Volkov's criminal empire. He discovers that the Anvil is more than just a fight club. It's a recruitment ground for Volkov's other operations. The most skilled and ruthless fighters are offered opportunities to join his security detail, his enforcement teams, and even his assassination squads. Bishop realizes that his mission is more complex than he initially thought. He's not just trying to expose Volkov's illegal fighting operations. He's trying to dismantle his entire criminal network. He also begins to form alliances, carefully cultivating relationships with other fighters who seem disillusioned with the Anvil. He finds a kindred spirit in a seasoned veteran named Brick, a hulking powerhouse with a quiet intelligence. Brick has been around the Anvil for years, and he knows the inner workings of the organization. But he's also grown weary of the violence and the corruption. That he sees something in Bishop, a sense of purpose, a desire to change things. Bishop confides in Brick, revealing his true identity and his mission. Brick is initially skeptical, but he eventually agrees to help, providing Bishop with valuable information and access to key areas within the Anvil. Together, they begin to plan their next move, carefully plotting their strategy to expose Volkov and dismantle his empire from the inside. The stakes are high, and the risks are immense. But Bishop is determined to see his mission through, no matter the cost. He's no longer just fighting for vengeance. He's fighting for justice. Bishop's relentless climb doesn't go unnoticed by everyone. Beyond the cheers of the crowd and the approving nods of Knuckles and Razor, someone else is watching him with keen interest. Serafina, the enigmatic manager of the Anvil. Serafina is a ghost in her own right. She moves through the Anvil with an almost ethereal grace, her presence both captivating and unsettling. Dressed in elegant, almost anachronistic clothing, she seems out of place in the brutal environment, yet she commands respect and fear from everyone, including Volkov himself. Her past is shrouded in mystery, whispered about in hushed tones by the other fighters. Some say she's a former assassin, others claim she's a disgraced aristocrat who fell from grace. The truth, Bishop suspects, is far more complex and dangerous. Serafina begins to take a more active interest in Bishop's career. She starts attending his fights, observing his technique and his demeanor with an almost clinical detachment. She offers him subtle advice, suggesting strategies and pointing out weaknesses in his opponents. Her insights are invaluable, helping Bishop to further refine his fighting style and dominate the competition. One evening, after a particularly brutal victory, Serafina approaches Bishop in the locker room. Her eyes, a piercing shade of blue, seem to penetrate his very soul. "You have potential, Danny Sharp," she says, her voice a low, melodic whisper. But potential is a wasted commodity without guidance. She offers him a proposition. She will become his personal mentor, guiding him to the top of the Anvil and beyond. In exchange, she asks for his loyalty and his unwavering obedience. Bishop is worried. He knows that Serafina is a dangerous player, and her motives are far from altruistic. But he also recognizes that she holds the key to unlocking the secrets of Volkov's empire. He accepts her offer, knowing that he's walking a tightrope, balancing his loyalty to Brick and his mission with the dangerous allure of Serafina's influence. He begins to spend more time with her, learning about the history of the Anvil, the intricacies of its operations, and the personalities of its key players, he discovers that Serafina has her own agenda, a long-term plan that involves disrupting Volkov's empire and seizing control for herself. She sees Bishop as a valuable asset, a weapon that can be wielded to achieve her goals. She grooms him, molding him into the perfect fighter, the perfect instrument of her ambition. As Bishop delves deeper into Serafina's world, he finds himself drawn to her enigmatic personality, her sharp intellect, and her ruthless determination. That he knows that she's dangerous, but he can't deny the powerful connection that exists between them. The lines between his mission and his personal feelings begin to blur. He's playing a dangerous game, and he's not sure if he can trust anyone, including himself. The Anvil isn't just a place for sanctioned violence. It's a complex ecosystem of rivalries, alliances, and betrayals. Bishop, under Serafina's guidance, learns to navigate this treacherous landscape, carefully choosing his friends and identifying his enemies. His alliance with Brick deepens, solidifying their partnership in their shared goal of dismantling Volkov's empire. Brick provides Bishop with invaluable information about the inner workings of the Anvil, the personalities of the key players, and the locations of hidden assets. He also acts as Bishop's confidant, offering support and guidance as he struggles to maintain his cover and balance his conflicting loyalties. However, Bishop's growing success also attracts the envy and resentment of other fighters, particularly Titan, a hulking, muscle-bound brute who has long been considered the Anvil's top contender. Titan sees Bishop as a threat to his dominance, and he makes it clear that he intends to eliminate him. Titan attempts to intimidate Bishop, spreading rumors about his past, sabotaging his training, and even orchestrating minor acts of violence against him. Bishop refuses to be intimidated. He responds with a cold, calculated defiance, proving that he's not afraid to stand up to Titan's bullying tactics. The tension between Bishop and Titan escalates, culminating in a series of heated confrontations that threaten to erupt into open warfare. Serafina recognizes the potential for chaos and steps in to mediate, reminding both fighters that their primary focus should be on winning fights and generating revenue for the Anvil. She proposes a solution, a championship match between Bishop and Titan, with the winner earning the right to challenge the current champion, a legendary fighter known only as the Reaper. Both fighters reluctantly agree, knowing that the stakes are higher than ever before. In addition to Titan, Bishop also faces opposition from other factions within the Anvil. That he learns that Knuckles, the talent scout who recruited him, is secretly working for a rival crime boss who wants to take control of the Anvil. Knuckles sees Bishop as a threat to his own ambitions, and he attempts to undermine his progress by spreading false information and manipulating the fight outcomes. Bishop realizes that he can't trust anyone completely. He needs to be constantly vigilant, carefully assessing the motives of everyone around him. He uses his intelligence and his skills to outmaneuver his enemies, playing them against each other and exploiting their weaknesses. He becomes a master of deception, concealing his true intentions and manipulating the perceptions of those around him. The Fight Club is a microcosm of a much larger, more dangerous world, and Bishop is learning to survive by any means necessary. His path to Volkov is paved with broken bones and shattered trust. While preparing for his upcoming fight with Titan, Bishop continues to gather intelligence on Volkov's operations. Focusing on the financial aspects of the Anvil, he begins to notice discrepancies in the betting patterns, anomalies that suggest something more than simple gambling is taking place. With Brick's help, Bishop gains access to the back-end financial records of the Anvil. He discovers a complex web of shell corporations and offshore accounts, all designed to launder money through the Fight Club's gambling operations. He finds evidence of large sums of cash being funneled through the Anvil, disguised as betting winnings and losses. The scheme is elaborate and well-organized, suggesting a sophisticated understanding of financial crime. Bishop also uncovers evidence of extortion. Volkov's organization is systematically targeting local businesses, demanding protection money in exchange for ensuring their safety from vandalism and violence. Those who refuse to pay are subjected to intimidation, property damage, and even physical assault. He witnesses firsthand the devastating impact of Volkov's extortion racket. He sees small business owners struggling to make ends meet, forced to hand over a significant portion of their earnings to Volkov's thugs, he sees families living in fear, afraid to speak out against the injustice. The anvil isn't just a source of entertainment. It's a tool of oppression, used to control and exploit the local community. Bishop relays this information to Isabella through his implanted comms device. She confirms that this aligns with their previous intelligence, but she urges him to gather more concrete evidence, documentation that can be used to build a solid case against Volkov. However, gathering evidence is risky. Bishop knows that Volkov's organization is constantly monitoring the anvil, watching for any signs of disloyalty. He needs to be careful, discreet, and resourceful. That he uses his skills as a former Special Forces operative to conduct surveillance, gather intelligence, and evade detection. He plants hidden cameras, intercepts communications, and recruits informants, all while maintaining his cover as a ruthless fighter. He's walking a tightrope. One wrong move could expose him and jeopardize his entire mission. As he delves deeper into Volkov's financial operations, Bishop realizes that the money laundering and extortion are just the tip of the iceberg. He suspects that Volkov is involved in far more serious crimes, including arms trafficking, human trafficking, and even assassinations. He needs to find the evidence that will connect Volkov to these crimes, the evidence that will bring him down once and for all. The fight with Titan is looming. But Bishop knows that the real battle is against Volkov, a battle that will determine the fate of the anvil and the future of the city. The relentless pressure of maintaining his cover, gathering intelligence, and preparing for the fight with Titan begins to take its toll on Bishop. He's constantly on edge, aware that one wrong move could expose him and jeopardize everything. His paranoia is justified. One evening, while leaving the anvil after a particularly grueling training session, Bishop is confronted by a face from his past. A ghost he thought he'd buried long ago. It's Marco the Serpent, Rossi, a former Special Forces operative who served alongside Bishop on several covert missions. Marco was presumed dead after a mission gone wrong in Chechnya, but he's very much alive, and he recognizes Bishop instantly. Well, Marco sneers, his eyes narrowed with suspicion. If it isn't Bishop, or should I say, Denny Sharp? Fancy meeting you here, old friend. Bishop's mind races. That he needs to think fast, to come up with a plausible explanation for his presence at the anvil. But Marco isn't buying it. He knows Bishop too well. He sees the years of training, the scars of battle, the haunted look in his eyes. Don't insult my intelligence, Bishop, Marco says, his voice hardening. I know what you are, that you're working undercover. But for who? And why? Bishop tries to reason with Marco, to convince him that he's not a threat. But Marco is too far gone, consumed by bitterness and resentment. He blames Bishop for the failure of their mission in Chechnya, for the death of their comrades. He sees Bishop as a traitor, a sellout who abandoned him to die. The conversation quickly escalates into a heated argument, and then, inevitably, into a fight. Marco attacks Bishop with a flurry of punches and kicks, his movements fast and precise. Bishop is forced to defend himself, using his skills to evade Marco's attacks and counter with his own. The fight spills out into the alleyway, attracting the attention of passers-by. Bishop knows he can't afford to be seen fighting in public. He needs to end this quickly, before his cover is completely blown. That he uses a series of brutal strikes to incapacitate Marco, knocking him to the ground. But Marco isn't finished. He pulls out a knife, lunging at Bishop with a desperate fury. Bishop is forced to react, disarming Marco and then delivering a final, devastating blow that renders him unconscious. Bishop stands over Marco's lifeless body, his heart pounding in his chest. He knows that he's crossed a line, that he's killed a man, a former comrade. He's compromised his mission. That he needs to disappear, to vanish without a trace. That he calls Brick, telling him what happened and asking for his help. Brick arrives quickly, helping Bishop to dispose of Marco's body and clean up the scene. The incident leaves Bishop shaken and disillusioned. He's reminded of the dark side of his past, the violence and the betrayal that have haunted him for so long. He's questioning his motives, his methods, and his ability to complete his mission without losing himself completely. The fight with Titan is just days away, but Bishop is facing a far more dangerous battle, a battle against his own demons. Despite the near exposure with Marco, Bishop presses forward, determined to fulfill his mission. Serafina, aware of the incident, but seemingly unconcerned, assures him that such things are unfortunate but necessary in their line of work. Her cold pragmatism both intrigues and unnerves him. The championship fight against Titan arrives. The atmosphere is electric, the crowd roaring with anticipation. Bishop, battling his inner demons and the lingering guilt over Marco's death, focuses his energy on the task at hand. The fight is a brutal, back-and-forth slugfest, testing both fighters' endurance and resolve. Bishop, relying on his superior technique and tactical awareness, eventually gains the upper hand, defeating Titan with a series of devastating blows. The victory earns Bishop more than just the right to challenge the Reaper. It earns him Volkov's attention. Impressed by Bishop's skill and ruthlessness, Volkov invites him into his inner circle, offering him a position as one of his personal enforcers. This is the opportunity Bishop has been waiting for, and he accepts Volkov's offer, knowing that it will give him access to sensitive information about his criminal network. He's brought into meetings, privy to conversations about arms deals, drug trafficking, and even assassinations. He learns about Volkov's network of corrupt officials, the politicians, judges, and police officers who are on his payroll. Bishop carefully documents everything he sees and hears, transmitting the information to Isabella via his comms device. The evidence is mounting, painting a damning picture of Volkov's criminal empire. Isabella is ecstatic, urging Bishop to continue gathering information, assuring him that they are close to bringing Volkov down. However, Bishop is growing increasingly uneasy. He senses that he's being manipulated, that Isabella's organization has its own agenda, one that may not align with his own. That he begins to question her motives, wondering if she's using him as a pawn in a larger game. He also becomes increasingly conflicted about his relationship with Serafina. He finds himself drawn to her intelligence, her ambition, and her unwavering loyalty. He knows that she's a dangerous player, but he can't deny the powerful connection that exists between them. One evening, Serafina reveals to Bishop the full extent of Volkov's criminal network, showing him a ledger containing the names of all the corrupt officials who are on his payroll. She also tells him about Volkov's ultimate plan, to use the anvil as a training ground for a new generation of assassins, highly skilled killers who will carry out his orders without question. This information is a game-changer. Bishop realizes that he needs to act quickly. Before Volkov's plan comes to fruition, that he decides to trust Serafina, revealing to her his true identity and his mission. He asks for her help, hoping that she will betray Volkov and join him in his fight against corruption. Serafina is silent for a moment, her eyes betraying a mix of surprise and admiration. She then makes a decision that will change the course of their lives forever. Serafina's decision is swift and decisive. She agrees to help Bishop, revealing that she has long been planning to betray Volkov and seize control of his empire. She sees Volkov's plan to train assassins as a step too far, a move that will attract unwanted attention and destabilize the entire organization. She provides Bishop with a detailed plan to expose Volkov's operation and bring him down. The plan involves leaking the ledger containing the names of the corrupt officials to the media, triggering a massive scandal that will cripple Volkov's power. It also involves sabotaging the assassin training program, preventing Volkov from creating a new generation of killers. Bishop and Serafina work together to execute their plan, carefully coordinating their actions and minimizing their risk of exposure. Bishop uses his position as Volkov's enforcer to sabotage the assassin training program from within, disrupting the training sessions, undermining the instructors, and even recruiting some of the trainees to their side. He discovers that Volkov has handpicked the most ruthless and skilled fighters from the anvil, subjecting them to a rigorous training program that focuses on assassination techniques, weapons handling, and psychological manipulation. The trainees are being brainwashed, transformed into emotionless killing machines who will obey Volkov's every command. Bishop realizes that he needs to stop this program before it's too late. He works with Serafina to identify the key instructors and the most promising trainees, devising a plan to neutralize them and disrupt the program. They use a combination of sabotage, deception, and violence to achieve their goals, carefully avoiding any actions that could expose their true intentions. Meanwhile, Serafina leaks the ledger containing the names of the corrupt officials to a trusted journalist, triggering a media frenzy that engulfs the city. The scandal threatens to bring down Volkov's entire empire as politicians, judges, and police officers scramble to distance themselves from him. Volkov is furious, realizing that he's been betrayed. He launches a manhunt for the leaker, suspecting that someone within his inner circle is responsible. He tightens security at the Anvil, increasing surveillance and implementing new security protocols. Bishop and Serafina know that their time is running out. They need to act quickly before Volkov discovers their treachery. They decide to confront Volkov directly, hoping to catch him off guard and seize control of his operation. They arrange a meeting with Volkov, claiming to have information about the leaker. Volkov agrees to meet with them, unaware that he's walking into a trap. The stage is set for a final showdown, a battle that will determine the fate of the Anvil and the future of the city. As Bishop and Serafina prepare to confront Volkov, Bishop makes one last transmission to Isabella, relaying all the evidence he has gathered, including the names of the corrupt officials, the details of the money laundering operation, and the plans for the assassin training program. He believes that with this evidence, Isabella's organization will finally be able to move in and arrest Volkov and his accomplices. However, as he waits for Isabella's response, Bishop begins to notice subtle inconsistencies in her communication. Her tone is distant, her answers are vague, and she seems to be avoiding direct questions. He senses that something is wrong, that Isabella is not being entirely truthful with him. His suspicions are confirmed when he overhears a coded conversation between Isabella and Volkov. Using a sophisticated decryption device provided by Serafina, he listens in horror as Isabella reveals Bishop's true identity and his mission to Volkov. She also informs Volkov of Bishop's plan to confront him, giving him the opportunity to prepare a trap. Bishop is stunned, betrayed by the very organization that sent him on this mission, that he realizes that Isabella was never interested in bringing Volkov down. She was simply using him to eliminate a rival crime boss. She's corrupt, working with Volkov to consolidate power and maintain control of the city's underworld. He confronts Serafina with this information, revealing Isabella's treachery. Serafina is not surprised. She tells Bishop that she has long suspected that Isabella was corrupt, that she had her own agenda. She warns him that they are now in even greater danger, that Isabella will stop at nothing to protect her interests. Bishop and Serafina realize that they can no longer trust anyone. They are on their own, fighting against both Volkov and Isabella's organization. They need to change their plan to adapt to the new reality. They decide to use Isabella's betrayal to their advantage. They will lure Volkov into a trap, using the meeting that they had arranged to expose his criminal network to the world. They will also use the information that they have gathered to expose Isabella's corruption, bringing down both Volkov and her organization in one fell swoop. The stakes are higher than ever before. Bishop and Serafina are facing overwhelming odds, fighting against powerful enemies who are willing to do anything to protect their interests. But they are determined to see their mission through, to bring justice to the city and avenge the death of Bishop's sister. They are ready for the final showdown, a battle that will determine the fate of the Anvil and the future of the city. The betrayals have cut deep, but they have also strengthened his resolve. With Isabella's betrayal exposed and their plan to confront Volkov set in motion, Bishop finds himself forced into a final, brutal test of his fighting skills. Volkov, aware of Bishop's treachery but wanting to make an example of him, insists that he fight in the championship match against the Reaper before their meeting. The Reaper is a legend in the Anvil, an undefeated behemoth of a man whose real name is unknown, that he's a mountain of muscle, a silent, unstoppable force that has crushed every opponent he's faced. He's Volkov's ultimate weapon, his most loyal enforcer. Bishop knows that this fight is more than just a test of his physical abilities. It's a fight for his life. Volkov intends to kill him in the ring, to send a message to anyone who dares to cross him. He also knows that if he refuses to fight, Volkov will immediately suspect his treachery and kill him and Serafina, that he has no choice but to accept the challenge that he prepares for the fight. Knowing that he's facing the most dangerous opponent of his life, he studies the Reaper's fighting style. Analyzing his strengths and weaknesses, he devises a strategy, knowing that he needs to use every trick in the book to survive. The night of the fight arrives. The anvil is packed, the atmosphere thick with anticipation. Volkov is seated ringside, his eyes filled with malice. Serafina is also present, her face a mask of composure. But Bishop can sense her anxiety as Bishop enters the ring. The crowd erupts. He's become a popular figure, a symbol of rebellion against Volkov's tyranny. But he knows that their support is fleeting, that they will turn on him if he loses. The Reaper enters the ring, his presence filling the space. He's even bigger and more intimidating than Bishop had imagined. His eyes are cold and emotionless, reflecting the years of violence and brutality that have shaped him. The bell rings, and the fight begins. The Reaper immediately attacks, unleashing a barrage of devastating blows. Bishop is forced to defend himself, using his agility and technique to evade the Reaper's attacks. The fight is a grueling test of endurance, a battle of wills that pushes both fighters to their limits. Bishop is battered and bruised, but he refuses to give up. That he knows that he needs to win this fight, not just for himself, but for Serafina, for Brick, and for everyone who has been oppressed by Volkov's tyranny. He uses his superior fighting skills to exploit the Reaper's weaknesses, landing a series of precise strikes that target his pressure points. He manages to knock the Reaper off balance, creating an opening for a final devastating blow. That he unleashes a knockout punch, sending the Reaper crashing to the canvas. The crowd erupts. A mixture of cheers and stunned silence. Bishop, battered and bruised but victorious, stands over the fallen Reaper. But he knows this is only the beginning. He has one last card to play, a final act of defiance that will expose Volkov's crimes to the world. As the referee moves to declare him the winner, Bishop grabs the microphone from the announcer. The crowd quiets, their attention focused on him. Volkov watches from ringside, his eyes narrowed with suspicion. "I have something to say." Bishop begins, his voice raspy but firm. "This isn't just a fight club. This is a criminal enterprise. Volkov is using the anvil to launder money, extort businesses, and train assassins." A murmur runs through the crowd. Some are skeptical, others are intrigued. Volkov rises from his seat, his face contorted with rage. He signals to his enforcers, ordering them to silence Bishop. But Bishop continues, his voice growing louder, more impassioned. He reveals the names of the corrupt officials who are on Volkov's payroll, the details of the money laundering operation, and the plans for the assassin training program. He shows the crowd photographs and documents that he has gathered, evidence that proves Volkov's guilt. Volkov is a monster, Bishop declares. He's been preying on this city for too long. It's time for him to be brought to justice. The crowd erupts again, this time with a roar of anger and defiance. They've been living in fear for too long, and Bishop's words have given them the courage to speak out. Volkov's enforcers move to attack Bishop, but the crowd intervenes, protecting him from their violence. A riot breaks out, chaos erupting throughout the anvil. Serafina signals to Brick, who has been waiting in the shadows. Brick and his allies move to secure the perimeter, preventing anyone from escaping. They also contact the authorities, informing them of Volkov's crimes and urging them to intervene. As the riot rages, Bishop confronts Volkov in the center of the ring. Volkov is surrounded by his enforcers, but Bishop is undeterred. That he knows that this is his last chance to bring Volkov to justice. "It's over, Volkov," Bishop says, his eyes filled with hatred. "Your reign of terror is over." Volkov laughs, a cold, menacing sound. "You think you can stop me?" he sneers. "I am untouchable." "Not anymore," Bishop replies. "The world knows your secrets. Your empire is crumbling." Volkov lunges at Bishop, drawing a knife. The two men engage in a brutal, hand-to-hand combat, their skills evenly matched. The crowd watches in horror, unsure of who will emerge victorious. The culmination of everything has arrived. It's all or nothing now. As Bishop and Volkov clash, the sounds of sirens fill the air. The authorities, alerted by Brick and the leaked information, have arrived to shut down the anvil and arrest Volkov and his accomplices. Chaos erupts. Law enforcement officers swarm the building, battling their way through the rioting crowd. Volkov's enforcers, desperate to protect their boss and escape arrest, engage the officers in a fierce firefight. Bishop, caught in the middle of the chaos, continues his fight with Volkov, They exchange a flurry of blows, each man determined to kill the other. Bishop, fueled by years of pent-up rage and grief, fights with a ferocity that surprises even himself. Volkov, realizing that he's losing, calls for reinforcements. His remaining henchmen, armed with knives and guns, converge on the ring, surrounding Bishop and Volkov. Bishop is outnumbered and outgunned, but he refuses to surrender. He uses his superior fighting skills and tactical awareness to evade their attacks and counter with his own. He fights with a desperate energy, knowing that his life and the future of the city depends on his survival. That he manages to disarm several of Volkov's henchmen. Using their own weapons against them, that he takes down one after another, his movements swift and deadly. Serafina, seeing that Bishop is in danger, intervenes, using her own skills to protect him. She fights alongside him, taking down several of Volkov's henchmen with a combination of martial arts and firearms. Together, Bishop and Serafina fight their way through the chaos, clearing a path to Volkov. They corner him in a secluded area of the anvil, away from the fighting crowd and the law enforcement officers. Volkov, realizing that he's trapped, pulls out a gun and aims it at Bishop. "It's over, Bishop," he says, his voice filled with venom. "You can't win. It's never over," Bishop replies, his eyes fixed on Volkov. Justice always prevails. Before Volkov can pull the trigger, Serafina disarms him, knocking the gun out of his hand. Bishop seizes the opportunity, launching himself at Volkov and engaging him in a final, brutal hand-to-hand combat. The two men exchange a series of punishing blows, each determined to gain the upper hand. Bishop, fueled by his desire for revenge, fights with a relentless fury. He unleashes a final, devastating strike, knocking Volkov to the ground. Unconscious, A.S. Bishop stands over the fallen crime lord. The authorities arrive, taking Volkov into custody. The chaos begins to subside as law enforcement officers restore order to the anvil. The city is safe, at least for now. With Volkov in custody and the anvil shut down, the city begins to breathe a sigh of relief. The corrupt officials whose names were leaked are being investigated, and the city's underworld is in disarray. Bishop has achieved his mission, avenged his sister's death, and brought justice to the city. But the victory comes at a cost. Bishop is wounded, both physically and emotionally. He's battered and bruised from the fight with the Reaper and Volkov's henchmen. He's also haunted by the violence he's witnessed, the lives he's taken, and the betrayals he's endured. He's disillusioned with the system. With the corruption that permeates every level of society, he's realized that even those who are supposed to uphold the law are often complicit in the crimes they are supposed to prevent. He also questions his own future. He's no longer sure what he wants to do, where he wants to go. He spent so many years fighting, sacrificing everything for his mission. Now that it's over, he feels empty, lost. He visits his sister's grave, standing there in silence for a long time. That he tells her that he's avenged her death, that he's brought justice to the city. But he also admits that it hasn't brought him the peace he was hoping for. That he meets with Serafina, thanking her for her help and her loyalty. He acknowledges that he couldn't have done it without her. He also admits that he's not sure what the future holds for him. Serafina offers him a proposition, but she's planning to take control of the anvil, to transform it into a legitimate business, a place where people can train and compete without being exploited or corrupted. She asks Bishop to join her, to help her build a new future for the city. Bishop considers her offer, but ultimately declines. He's grateful for her friendship and her support, but he knows that he can't stay in this city. That he needs to leave, to find a new purpose in life. He also realizes that Serafina is a changed woman. That she's no longer the cold, calculating manager of the anvil, but she's found a new sense of purpose, a desire to make a positive difference in the world. He believes that she's capable of transforming the anvil, of creating a better future for the city. In the aftermath of the chaos, Bishop says goodbye to Brick, thanking him for his loyalty and his friendship. He knows that Brick will stay in the city, helping Serafina to rebuild the anvil and create a better future for the community. He also knows that he can't stay, that he needs to disappear, to vanish back into the shadows. That he needs to find a new purpose, a new reason to fight. That he leaves the city, traveling to a remote location, a place where he can be alone with his thoughts. That he spends his days training, honing his skills. And reflecting on his past, he realizes that he can't escape his past, but he can learn from it. He can use his skills and his experience to make a positive difference in the world. He decides to dedicate his life to fighting injustice, to protecting the innocent, and to bringing down the corrupt. He will become a vigilante, a shadow warrior who operates outside the law, dispensing justice on his own terms. That he knows that it's a dangerous path, that he will face powerful enemies and make difficult choices. But he's determined to see it through. To use his skills to make the world a better place, he adopts a new identity, a new persona. That he becomes the Ghost, a name that reflects his silent demeanor and his ability to appear and disappear at will. He travels the world, seeking out those who are in need of his help. He fights against human traffickers, drug dealers, and corrupt officials. That he protects the weak, defends the innocent, and brings down the guilty. He becomes a symbol of hope for those who have been forgotten, a force for good in a world that is often filled with darkness. That he never forgets his past, but he refuses to be defined by it. That he uses his experiences to guide him, to make him stronger, and to help him make the right choices. He becomes a true hero, a force for justice in a world that desperately needs it. The final scene shows Bishop walking away from a burning building, his face obscured by shadows. He's just rescued a group of kidnapped children from a human trafficking ring. He disappears into the night, leaving no trace of his presence. The camera pans up to the sky, showing the city lights twinkling in the distance. The city is safe, at least for now, thanks to the actions of one man, a man who has chosen to fight for justice on his own terms. The possibility for more stories is there. The world is vast and full of injustice. Bishop is out there somewhere, ready to make a difference.